Have you thought about buying a Chinese chef knife? If so, you're going to want to stay tuned because today we're going to go through what a Chinese chef knife is. Now, before we get started, please consider supporting the channel by hitting that like and subscribe button. First off, let's talk about the name. I see a lot of people calling this knife a Chinese cleaver, which I feel is not really doing this knife much justice. In Cantonese, we call this a choi do, which in direct translation means vegetable knife. So to me, I would rather call this a Chinese chef knife because it more fairly represents the function of the knife. Even though this thing looks like a cleaver, the term cleaver really just misrepresents the function of this knife. So when most people talk about a cleaver, they're usually thinking of this kind of cleaver right here. This is the meat cleaver, the butchering knife, the butchering cleaver, the thing that smashes through bone. And usually it is a much heavier knife with a very, very thick blade on it, a very thick blade profile, and also has a very thick blade even behind the edge of it. The reason of this is so that way it's more kind of like a hatchet where it has enough heft to hack through the bone without it destroying the edge of the knife. They're also usually made with a little bit softer material so that way the bone doesn't chip the knife as often, and also it doesn't really come razor sharp. Whereas when you take a look at the Chinese chef knife, even though it has the shape of a cleaver, the function of it is completely different. It is more for fine slicing, fine dicing, more finesse work to cut vegetables and meat into very, very delicate and thin, small portions. You'll also notice that the knife is significantly lighter than your typical cleaver or butchering knife, and also the blade is way, way thinner in comparison to your butchering knife. And the thin blade is also by design because the Chinese chef knife is used to do very delicate cuts. When you see a lot of Cantonese dishes or Chinese dishes, you see the ingredients cut into very, very delicate pieces. And if you have a very thick blade, you can't achieve those cuts. With the very thin edge or the very thin blade, it makes those cuts possible without it cracking, wedging, and splitting the ingredients open. It makes for a not so pretty presentation. And sometimes you even notice that the choi do's blade is even thinner than some Western chef knives. Now let's take a look at the shape and the blade profile of the Chinese chef knife. As you guys can see, this knife is very rectangular with no tip. It is flat in the front and it looks almost like an 𝐒𝐿 on steroids. Now the blade edge or the blade profile is also very flat, and this is actually by design. The reason it has a very flat profile is because this knife is more meant for chop and push cuts, so that way whenever you push cut or chop cut, the flat edge will make maximize contact with your cutting surface to ensure whatever you're cutting is cut clean through. Throughout the years, many variations of the Chinese chef knife has taken form, and as things get more westernized, just like with the 𝐒𝐿 where they started rounding the tip off for more rock cuts, for Chinese chef knives, they've actually developed some Chinese chef knives to have a curvier belly or curvier blade profile to accommodate people who are more comfortable with rock cuts. And the edge of the Chinese chef knife comes razor sharp in comparison to like your butchering knife. Although your butchering knives are sharp, but it's not razor sharp, if that makes sense to you. There are certain functionalities for every different edge, just like you wouldn't put a surgical edge on an axe because it's just not applicable for its function. And as you guys can see, the Chinese chef knife is much taller than your normal 𝐒𝐿, and it is also much taller than your typical Western chef knife. Now, despite the knife being bigger and slightly heavier than your Western chef knife, there are some upsides to having this large surface area. This large surface area makes it great for moving and scooping your ingredients around. So let's say you just got done cutting a bunch of stuff on your cutting board. You don't have to switch hands to get your bench scraper or pick up your cutting board over to your pot. You can just use this knife, scoop up all of your ingredients, and bring it over to the pot. And also, the second thing is that this large surface area makes it great for crushing certain ingredients like garlic and ginger, and also certain spices. Now, the third thing is that this large surface area is also by design, is because when you're doing chop cuts, this gives you a lot of surface area for your hand to guide the knife. So when you're cutting, it gives you so much leeway to help you cut. So other functions of a Chinese chef knife is actually pretty cool. You can actually use the spine of this knife as a meat tenderizer or to smash certain ingredients. Now growing up, I see my dad throw down a slab of meat and start whacking or beat. You almost got me. I almost said beat the meat. But he starts chopping into the meat with the spine of the knife, and it just tenderizes the meat all throughout because it starts breaking the fibers inside the protein and tenderizes it. And another function that I see people use it very often is to smash open the lemongrass before using it. So there are many, many functions to a Chinese chef knife. Honestly, it's just up to the limits of your imagination on what you can use it for. That's why a lot of times I tend to pick up a Chinese chef knife, mainly because it's such a utilitarian knife and a great alternative to a Western chef knife. Now I hope this video helps answer what a Chinese chef knife is, and if you have any more additional questions or have anything additional to add, feel free to comment down below. I love talking to you guys. We have a great community here. We have some really knowledgeable audience and viewers here and subscribers that are very knowledgeable, and they love to share with everyone else. So feel free to dig into the comments and join the knife community here at Between Two Forks. Alright, so this wraps up our video for what is a Chinese chef knife, and I hope you guys do like it. If you guys do like it, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It will mean the world to me. It helps me support all of this madness, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.